Lord Macaulay said, and also Lord Crinkly Bottom about Mysore Pak being a Tamilian invention. But this tweet was of 2 years ago. And this was obviously a satirical thing, fake thing, and Times of India picked it up. And they made it as their own story, which is that Lord Macaulay did indeed talk of this land called Madras in a fearfully hot climate, and talked of his good friend Lord Crinkly Bottom in Bangalore, and this courtier who took this recipe, Mysore Pak, from Madras and ran all the way barefoot to the Maharaja of Mysore, who stole the name and named it Mysore Pak. And he ended with saying that I firmly believe that if we are to dominate India, we have to learn how to make Mysore Pak. Now, Times of India, because they did not mention where they got this authentic source from, they decided to put some spice on it. So 1835 becomes 1853. Lord Crinkly Bottom becomes my very good friend. The courtier becomes a lawyer. Suddenly the lawyer becomes a judge. So the story has got this masala, and once it comes out, immediately India Today picked it up. And they added their own masala to it. And then I mean, it was almost like an hour upon hour of this surreal, peoply life kind of experiment that was happening right before our eyes on National Press Day. You know, where a few hours before people were saying, look, we have to combat fake news, we have to do this, and here they are, they're taking Lord Macaulay's thing. And then it actually went to the agencies, and once it goes to the auto feed agencies, then the regional powers, media powers take it over. So, in fact, it's been the story, Lord Macaulay's original quote has been now quoted by about 11 outlets and radio stations. In fact, I'm just, people are giving me videos and tweets and this and that. Today, a Telugu thing. Now, there's Kannada TV, 2 TV channels have, covering this story. Someone even went to Sri Krishna Sweets and asked him about Lord Macaulay's quote. And the guy had, look, yeah, now, so if there are riots that happen, or if this becomes an election issue, as Ashwin was telling me, I need to apply for an anticipatory bail. There's no other. But you see what I'm talking about, and this is the environment that we are in right now. It is an environment where news does not matter. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that you spend about 1 hour or 2 hours of your time looking at something. And once you've looked at that thing, it matters that you comment on it. That is what it has been reduced to. And if I can take out a rather egregious analogy, to me, mainstream media right now is as important as a comb is to a bald man. It is sufficient but not necessary, And there used to be time 15 years ago when there was no social media, when I was so habituated to a newspaper. I won't tell you why in the morning I was, but if I didn't get a newspaper, I would actually have driven 15 kilometers to get a newspaper. But now I don't care, because the power is in our hands. And no matter, I'm sorry, Dhanya, you are a wonderful journalist and a friend and an honest, objective journalist, which is a very rare breed, almost, going extinct. But the fact is, the real journalism belongs to us. Okay, it belongs to the social media. It belongs to the people who expose all these pundits who are sitting, high atop their mountains, on their little fingers, having, like Govardhan Parbat, the landfills of lies and hypocrisy. It belongs to people who are exposing them. And in 10 or 15 years' time, you would see that people would stop believing journalists. A lot of good, there is good and bad in everything. To say that there is bad in social media, of course there is. It is a microcosm of this country, of any country. But it's a pity, honestly, that I'm not in the Nobel Prize giving committee. I don't know why. But if I was, there is one person I would give the Nobel Peace Prize and Literature Prize to, is Tim Berners-Lee. okay, the inventor of World Wide Web. He is the guy who, more than anyone else, has revolutionized, I would say, human evolution. So let me start by giving you a few examples of what he has done. And we are living in this age that we don't really know how it came upon us, but it did. Now, I'm a practicing scientist, so it came as a shock to me that people can be selective. And I say this all the time. Because in science, you can say almost every sentence that you write, publish a paper, is actually hyperlinked. If you've read something before, it is incumbent upon you to quote it. So it was a shock when I started dabbling in quote-unquote journalism, not really journalism, but opinion making and commentating, that I realized how amazingly selective people were. And once you're selective, by definition, you're running an agenda, even if you don't know it. So it came as a shock. And, the first thing that Tim Berners-Lee has done is not, I'm not talking about social media, Twitter, Facebook. Yes, it is a power. But the real power is not in the end, which is the real power is not the tweet that you put out, although many people would say it is. The real power is accessing the data, the knowledge that the internet has made available. You just go to a site called archive.org. There are 100 and 150-year-old books that you can read. You can click on it. There are hundreds and thousands there is digital library at IIT Kharagpur, IIT Kanpur. In about 15 years' time, anything that has ever been written by a human being would be accessible. So it's, when people talk of social media, when they talk of electronic media, they stop at Twitter and Facebook. No, I don't see Twitter and Facebook as a great medium to say, oh, it's what a lovely weather, how are you doing, let's converse. No, that's bullshit. I want social media to be a real power, to be able to tell people in power that, look, these are the facts before you, okay? Stop being a hypocrite. I've accessed a 50-year-old book, I've accessed a 100-year-old book, and you and your party are lying, okay? This is the power that I want social media to have. Not just conversations, because of course people are right, the real conversations happen in the real world. But how else can you put these facts, and how else can you challenge people in power? And just to give you one example, and you talked about it. So here is this gentleman, Shashi Tharoor. And he rather boisterously tweeted that if there is any party that has worked for the freedom of expression of in this country, it is the Congress Party. Fair enough, you are entitled to your views. And at that point of time, believe me, I thought, okay, let me just cite out the instances, because in my mind at that time, there were like half a dozen instances, because these are famous ones that you remember, Rushdie, Salman Rushdie, during the emergency, of course, Andhi, and things of that sort. So I started listing, and then I thought, look, I'm doing it the wrong way. I want to take in the power of social media. So I called it, this is a crowdsourced thread. And right now there are 165 instances. Out of that, I didn't know of 140 that even existed. And I dare say Shashi Tharoor probably didn't know 150 of them. Okay. How did this come about? This came about because people who were on social media, they could access knowledge, they could access Google, they could access archive.org, they could access books that Congress had banned. They could know about films that 45 things that were banned by the Congress were done by Nehru. And during Chacha Nehru's birthday, what was the quote that was famous? Don't spare me, Shankar. This is what Nehru said. Make fun of me. The same guy has banned 45 things, starting from books, films, harmonium, for heaven's sake. I mean, can you believe? Who knew this? That Nehru had banned harmonium in All India Radio, and the ban was lifted only in 1980. So this is the power I want. I don't want tweets and Facebook posts to say, well, you are wrong and you're horrible, and I don't want abuses. I don't want that. But just so that I don't want that, I don't want this right, that amazing right that Tim Berners-Lee has given us to be able to access amazing knowledge that no one knows exists. And at the fingertip, it comes out and it exposes people. So that is what I want, and that is the real power that I want people to harness. Briefly, because time is of the essence, The other thing that I found a lot of people was that they don't like data, okay? Now, politicians don't like data because data exposes people. Journalists certainly don't like data. And celebrity journalists, they want to stomp on data, okay? Day and night, okay? So when, for example, something like the church attacks happened, it really destabilized me because I was not prepared for it. I was not prepared that a whole organization called the media and the opposition would go after the government by saying that, look, these are the churches that are being attacked and this is a communal government that is being run. No one cared, least of all the government that has billions to spend, that spends millions every day on ads, useless ads. They could not spend $1 million or rupees or whatever to have a team to expose, has this thing happened before? Is this communal in nature? Is this just burglary? Is this just arson? And that is what it was. After 3 weeks of this, of Ribeiro writing and Times of India running banner headlines saying that Christians under attacks, almost a virtual civil war, after that the data comes out that there were more or same number of attacks on churches that were arson, that were burglary in the UPA than they were NDA. And then suddenly it goes away. So that was the first pointer. The next was this growing intolerance thing. Okay. The third was this Lynchistan thing. You go, and fourth is Muslims under attack. Fifth is Dalits being attacked by Hindus. In each of these instances, it takes about, so now and Adair, so a lot of people are very practiced in this. You know, you can actually quell this within a matter of days. The church attack fable took about 3 weeks to quell. The Lynchistan, the Gauri Lankesh thing, the Muslims under attack, all these things take about a couple of days. And then people realize that, you know, look, sell your wares elsewhere, okay? This is not the place for you. And it is great. In fact, a cardinal mistake that a lot of senior journalists and lawyers have done is that they have unwittingly come to Twitter thinking, oh, it'll be a wonderful place. Those damn fools are exposing themselves, okay? So you see all these guys who like, you know, who are like stalwarts of journalism, they tweet something and immediately there are 10 people who've exposed them, thoroughly exposed them. I don't want to go into Michelangelo and Van Gogh or things like that. But just the last thing I want to say is that the other thing that came to me was that they're actually, the left, most of it, as Rahul Roshan has actually said, you know, many times, it is, remember what you're fighting. And I'm not fighting anyone, I don't hate anyone because I have another profession. That's another thing. A lot of journalists, I believe, in the next 15, 20 years, will be having 2 jobs. I think if you have to be objective, per se, you cannot be emotionally blackmailed or you cannot be ransomed. You need 2 jobs. You need another day job that is not journalism. And that, I think a good journalist 20 years from now would not be only a journalist. And I think that is what the change that I can see happening. And I think that's a great change. This thing about science. Now, left hates science. I can give so many examples, and yet they're heroes. So when people are talking of anti-Semites, I call them anti-STEMites. STEM standing for science, technology, engineering, and medicine. They're all anti-STEMites. And the reason for that is there are plentiful examples. A bomb daddy, oh my God, he's a scientist, oh my God, you know. So this is like a calamity is going to happen that all of us who are in STEM have this hand on nuclear button, okay, that we're going to explode this just because we've exposed your perfidy. The fourth thing that I want to say this about, and this everyone knows, is this hatred for India, hatred for Hinduism, and hatred for Modi. Now, there are 3 different things. Honestly, I don't care about hatred for Modi. Because Modi is a politician, he can handle himself, he's handled people. It's not, there is no point in me getting angry if somebody hates Modi. I mean, that's ridiculous, okay? Because Modi doesn't care if somebody hates me, right? Hatred for Hinduism, last minute, thank you, yes. Hatred for Hinduism, it's a tricky thing because I would say I'm an atheist, but of course in Hinduism there is a stream of atheism, and I'm culturally, I can say, yes, I'm a Hindu, everyone is. I don't care about it that much as well, because at the end of the day there are many religions, and Hinduism is a straight way of life. You can criticize way of life, you can hate various aspects of Hinduism, great. this hatred for India is something that bothers me, because you can see from the last 3 weeks, and this has become so obvious now, it has become a disease, that they are transforming, hatred for Modi, hatred for Hinduism, hatred for India. They've kind of merged, and what has come out is this Frankenstein that is not able to recognize who do I hate. So you had the Pew survey. Pew is one of the most recognizable organizations that does surveys, that said 80% people believe in Modi. Well, okay, fine, it's a survey. Same guys who are running the opinion polls on news channels are now saying, well, only 2,300 people were surveyed. Well, it's a survey. It's not, they haven't gone around asking 1.2 billion people. That's what surveys are for. The second is ease of business thing. Now, the third, yesterday was Moody's, okay? These are reputable organizations, guys. When they come up with something, 2 years ago, they actually blasted the government, and then you're saying, believe in these things, Do not shoot the messenger. And right now, you're doing exactly the same thing. So, and who will expose this? 20 years ago, you would be writing an opinion in op-ed article in Hindu. Sorry, just 30 seconds more. And all you would do is, you would read this, and you would get angry, and you would fling the newspaper against the wall. That's all. The guy you flung the newspaper to, he wouldn't know you've done it, right? So this is the great equalizer. And I think it is an age that I'm loving it, absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Professor Anand. With that, we will close this session. Due to paucity of time, we are not able to take questions. Of course, if the speakers are willing, you can interact with them offline. Over to Harshini. We'll felicitate all our speakers who are here.
Without further ado, we take this opportunity to honor the speakers of this session. Kindly request Mr. Ram Kumar Raghuram to honor Ms. Chinmayi Sripada. Ms. Savita to honor Danya Rajendran. Request Mr. Sumit Krishnan to honor Mr. Anand Ragnathan. Sushmit Krishnan, sorry. Yapan to honor Ms. Banu Gomes. Thank you, speakers. Thank you very much. I kindly request Mr.